Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today you'll take on the roles of beloved heroines from some of history's most famous stories, myths, and legends, like Red Riding Hood or Snow White. But these are not the classic characters that you remember, but rather super-powered fables drawn from their own lands to battle across sweeping, bizarre, alternate dimensions and realities in this deck-building game. Twisted Fables is a fast-paced fairy tale fighting game inspired by old-school 2D arcade fighters. It's for 2 players, or it can be played with up to 4 with an expansion. Plays in about 60 minutes for ages 14 and up, and published by Dimension Games. It's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of the game, each player gets to pick a fable, in this case like Red Riding Hood. And it shows you how much health you have, your max defense, your epic threshold, and all sorts of specific cards that you have in a skill supply deck for this fable, also some different special rules that the different fables have. Or maybe you'll be Snow White, who has a cool poison deck that goes in with her she gets to use. Or maybe you'll want to be Sleeping Beauty. Or maybe Mulan. Or possibly Alice, or finally Kaguya. And once you select your fable, you put it into this tray which tracks your health, your epic threshold, which is where you unlock those cool epic cards, your defense, and your power, which is a currency in the game used to buy other cards. But you also get to put your skill supply decks with those specific cards off to the side. Now these are 3 specific decks to that fable, and they start with level 1s, and as you get them they go down to the higher levels, and only you can get these, and these are different cards that are specific that are going to give you sort of an asymmetry to other players. You'll also have access to one of the 3 epic cards for your fable at certain points throughout the game, and that's going to give you a big boost that you'll need. Now the object of the game is to get your opponent's health to 0. If you do that, you win. Now over the course of the game, you'll also be buying standardized type cards of attack, defense, and movement in levels of 1, 2, and 3, as well as some wild cards. Now you'll also set up a fighting track where the 2 fables will be on throughout the game, and they'll be moving around to trigger different things on different cards. Now each fable is going to get 3 level 1 attack, defense, and movement for the basic cards, and shuffle those in with the top card of each of their 3 skill decks, which are fable specific, and this makes up their 12 card deck that they'll shuffle and start the game with. Now the game flows back and forth from player to player. Now on a normal turn, you'll have 6 cards drawn from your deck into your hand, and you'll be playing those cards into your play zone in front of you and doing certain things with them. Now you can do some of the same actions multiple times. It's very free flow as to the order you do things and how many times you can do things. Now for the sake of the ease of showing you this on the table, pretend like these are in my hand and I'm placing them down as I do them. So here I'm going to throw down 3 movement cards, and each of these is a level 1 movement which allows me to move 1. So in this case I'm going to move 3, 1, 2, 3. You can't end your spot on with another fable, but I was able to successfully move 3. Now because I used 3 movement, I'm going to get 3 power. Now again, this is currency that we'll use towards the end of our turn to purchase more cards. And then I'm going to use an attack card, but I'm going to use it in conjunction with one of my skill supply deck cards, the Pot Shot. Now normally in attack, this would do 1 damage to an opponent, but you always have to be within a range of 1 when you attack. And a range of 1 is simply right next to it like we are here. Now here we have a choice. We could just play this 1 attack level 1 card. And if we did, because we're in range 1, which you always need to be for an attack, it would do 1 damage to Snow White. They would move their health marker down by 1, but we would also gain 1 power as well. And again, we would have moved this 1, giving us more currency to buy cards. Or we could play it in conjunction with this Pot Shot. This is one of my skill cards, and this tells us that we have to activate it with exactly 1 attack card, because it has this icon on it. So essentially I put these together like this, and I would use these. Now this says I have to be range 1, which I am. Damage would be 1 plus the damage here. So in this case it's just 2, 1 for this and 1 for this. But if I had had like a level 2 or 3 attack card instead of this, it would have done more damage. But when I combine these, I don't get the power from here like I did using it individually. So I either want to use this and attack them and hit them for 2 damage, Or maybe just do the 1 damage and gain a power, meaning I won't be able to use this turn because I didn't have any other attack cards. So those are some of the decisions you'll make even right off the bat in the first hand. So let's just say we did this, we hit them twice, they go down 2 in health, but we didn't gain any power. And defense, here I would just simply, because it's level 1, I would move up 1 in my defense, and I would gain 1 power for doing so as well. So right now I have 4 power. And so the cost of the cards is in the upper right. So I can't buy any of these level 3 cards, so they cost 6. These ones cost 3 and I have 4. So I could buy one of these and one of these, or any one of these level 2s and any one of these level 1s. The wild is 2. It's basically a level 1 of any of them. So let's say we buy, a level 2 attack and let's say, a level 1 defense here. We spent all 4. Now those cards are going to go in a face-up discard pile. We'll get to those eventually once we cycle through our draw deck and need to draw more cards. We'll be cycling those into the deck. Now we've spent this power, and regardless if you've spent it all or not, at the end of your turn you need to go down to 0 anyway, so you might as well spend as much as you can. And at the end of your turn, you'll also discard any cards you hadn't played, and any of them that are in your play area that don't have ongoing effects. In this case, none of them do. If they did, it would stay there, otherwise they go into your discard pile. Then you'll draw 6 cards from your deck to get your new hand for next turn. It'll be the next player's turn. Now that was a very simplified turn just to show you how things work as a basic way, but there are different things that happen in different phases. For example, in the beginning phase, there's some that are going to be resolved at the beginning of your turn. There's certain cards that will do that. As well as when you're in the ending phase, there's certain things that will trigger at the end of your turn as well. And also towards the beginning of your turn, you'll get rid of all the cards from your play area, even the ones that had ongoing effects, and you'll also reset your defense back to 0, so whether or not you used it on your opponent's turn, it's going back to 0. Now let's talk about some of the cool things like the epic cards. Anytime your health drops 2 or below your epic threshold, this gets removed. You then get to select one of your 3 epic cards, secretly select it, put it right into your hand, and then discard the other ones out so the other player doesn't know which one you've selected. And they do really cool things, like you've got a range up to 3, damage 3, and then you knock back the opponent up to 3 spaces in the direction of your choice, and then the opponent must then discard 3 cards, things like that. Or the ability to add 2 cards from the tops of any of your skill decks right into your hand. Now that's cool because these are very powerful. Now I showed you the basic decks that you could buy things. Now here you can buy from your skill decks as well, and like these are now level 2s. And again, before I had spent my power on other cards, but you can buy your skill cards as well, and the cost is here. And as you go through them, sometimes they'll be the same card, but they're in a very specific order that you set them up in, and sometimes you get down to these types of cards. Now these are twist cards. As soon as you reveal them, you get them, you put them in front of you. They're kind of ongoing effects. Like this says, anytime you use a skill card that is mated with an attack or a movement, you can discard up to 1 skill card from your hand to gain the damage of whatever level is the card that you've discarded. And as you go through these, then you get into some of the level 3 cards, range 3, damage 3, plus the attack card that was there. And there's another sniper shot, and then another twist card. So each of these decks are very cool because they give you better things as you go through them, but they're also very specific to your fable, and they have these cool twist cards that give you those ongoing abilities. And if you look at these decks even closer, this deck has to do with attacking, this one defending, and this one movement. So you can mess with your strategy there. Now that's pretty much how the game works, and as soon as one player gets to 0 health, the other player wins. Now once you're familiar with the game, you can play in what's called relic mode. Now the track here where you move back and forth, the cards are now flipped face up, and they all have different abilities that you can enact. For example, I'm on Thirst No More. If I want to, I can discard a skill card. This is a level 2. I would discard it, and this is recover hit points equal to the level. So I would just get 2 hit points back because I had used this 2, I've discarded it. Or maybe you spy to the future and reveal top cards from your deck and add basic cards to your hand and discard the others. Or draw a certain amount of cards equal to the level of that card that you discarded, and then discard that same amount of cards -1 from your hand, so you get you get to build your hand up a little bit. Or you can use the skill card that you just discarded as if you played a required level 1 basic card for it. That's really cool to use if you didn't have one to activate that skill card. Now, if you buy the expansion, you can play in a 2v2 mode, essentially 4 players that are on teams, and now there's 2 different tracks that you'll be on. And you can discard a movement card of any level to switch to the other track. Now, if a team loses a Fable and the other team still has 2, Then the player with just one gets to take a turn in place of their defeated partner. And essentially you're just trying to be the team that defeats the other two players' fables. Now I'm going to show off the skill cards from Red Riding Hood's different decks. Feel free to pause and read the cards and see what they do in case you want that detail. And here is the sort of defensive skill deck. And here are the unique cards in the attacking skill deck for Red Riding Hood. Now let's check out Snow White's specific cards for a little bit. She builds a poison deck at the beginning of the game, and they have levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is when this card enters your discard pile, you lose 0 hit points, but you discard this card from your hand to gain a power. But once you get through those ones and you get to level 2, when it goes in the discard pile, you lose 1 hit point and gain a power. And the third one, you lose 2 hit points to gain a power. So it takes a while to get to those, but they do worse and worse things when they get to your discard pile as you get to those. Now those go in conjunction with these unique skill cards from her deck. For example, these have to get played with defense cards, and you place up to the level of defense card that you played on the top, from the top of the poison deck into your opponent's discard pile. So as you play these skill cards with defense cards, you're putting those into your opponent's discard. Again, losing them hit points, but also giving them power as they discard them, but also mucking up their hand. And finally, we'll show you the 3 epic cards for Snow White. Feel free to pause and see what all these abilities do. Well, there you have Twisted Fables, and as I showed in the overview, it's an interesting take on well-known characters and fables, and that it puts you in a beautiful and immersive world, all driven by deck-building mechanisms that have some twists, see what I did there, to it. If you'd like to see the final art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. It will take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Dimension Games would love your support.